Welcome to Season 2 of The Strain Podcast, a Southgate Media Group production, where we talk all about Guillermo del Toro's horror fantasy series, The Strain. We are currently covering the series' second season on episode. I'm your host, Blaire and Graves, Director of Social Media and Associate Editor at TVBinges.com, and with me today is Kyle Trimbley, the Editor-in-Chief at TVBinges.com. You can find us on Twitter at BlaireLovesTV and at KyleLovesTV. And you can also follow this podcast Twitter handle at @TheStrainPod. Hi, Kyle. How are you doing today?
Oh, Blaire, I am taking Zach out for a walk and leaving him alone in a park. How are you?
Pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I might be leaving Zach alone with a piece of wood between him and his mother. That might be what I'm... Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a responsible thing to do, right?
Yeah.
To keep Zach stored in the room right next to the door that he can easily debar. Yeah, I mean, it's not like for the last 8 weeks or so he's been obsessively talking about how his mother isn't a vampire, and clearly, if given the chance, would let her inside without a second thought.
No, it's not like that was the case at all.
No, I mean, it's not like this is a kid who certainly should have been killed by now, but at the very least should have been quarantined for his own safety.
No, this is a child who's going to play video games and not notice if a vampire shows up at his door.
Right, yes. So
we're F right now.
Yep, right. I feel more like James Bond by the second.
Maybe a little more like pre-shaved head F. Maybe. Just maybe a little bit. Maybe.
Now I feel sadness.
All right. Today, you and I will be discussing Season 2, Episode 8, titled Intruders, which was written by David Weddle and Bradley Thompson, who are writing partners and known for their work on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Battlestar Galactica, and CSI. Previously, the duo has written the episodes The Box, For Services Rendered, Last Rites, and By Any Means, which are all episodes that Kyle, you and I liked but did not love.
Yes.
And yeah, they're just, they write episodes that fit into the story, and they've done the penultimate, and they've done the second episode of each season, so they're kind of like movers and shakers is my impression of these writing guys.
Well, if that was the case, then they did no moving and no shaking here, because I cannot imagine an episode of an apocalypse television show where less happened. This was, as far as like advancing the plot goes, I challenge anyone to tell me a single thing that happened in this episode. I mean, I guess you could say the Cardinal, but like no one got the tuxedo ramen. Like, I mean, nothing happened.
Well, I would disagree. I would say like Quinlan and Gus, sided together. That happened.
I guess they had a conversation. But we didn't, see them, there was no, payoff to that. I mean, we assumed that they're siding together now, but it wasn't we got some great scene of them beating up some vampires.
Icor's Sassy Pants was around for, a solid 15 minutes, and that's
True.
Pretty good.
I mean, I didn't say that there was a lot of good stuff in this episode. And I didn't dislike this episode. I just mean from, where did we start, where are we now perspective. I mean, we are exactly where we started. The bread van was in neutral this episode.
Yeah, we put on the brakes. We had a lot of heartache between multiple male leads. And we had a very annoying child. But yeah, I guess I could agree with you. Not a lot of actual progression of apocalypse or action or anything like that.
It was almost similar to last week, to me, where I thought this episode was real hit and miss in terms of effectiveness. And I should be clear that just because nothing happens doesn't mean an episode can't be good. One thing is, with Creatures of the Night, the episode that we always talk about, Jim died in that episode, so obviously there was one very big event. But that was a bottle episode. It was a bottle episode to kill that character, right? But that it wasn't the apocalypse didn't start or anything. There wasn't any big picture plot movements in that episode, and it was the best episode of the series. So I think my misgivings about this episode aren't really related to the fact that nothing happened. It's related to the fact that there were a couple scenes that were just dreadful. Balanced out by some genuinely good scenes, I should say.
No, I was going to say, I totally think that there was a lot of really good material here, and it was very captivating and interesting, and I was not once bored while watching this episode. I was disgusted while watching this episode, but I was not once bored.
Bored is too neutral of an emotion to have. This was, I mean, really hit and miss. There was no punting in this episode. Either it was a home run or a strikeout. And I'm mixing my sports metaphors.
Is there something worse than a strikeout?
Well, I could go into another. We're too deep into sports metaphors already.
Okay.
Let's just start the episode.
All right. Should we just start at the head with Coco and Palmer, since we're clearly talking about that?
I'm not even gonna make a head. Okay. Yeah.
Why?
There's. I mean, we really delved into this last week. And every line I say, I want to make like a sex pun, because that's what this whole story is, right? It's this weird story about a 90-year-old having sex. Like,
yeah.
That's it. And
it's not a 90-year-old having sex. It's a 90-year-old having sex with a supermodel.
Yes.
It's not...
Yeah, right. The grossness isn't that he's old, it's that he's old and she's young.
Yes.
I mean, real young.
Yeah.
And we talked about, we really broke this down last week about what this story could be, but my goodness, am I getting the impression that it's being played straightforward, right?
Yeah, no, I disagree strongly.
You think she's deceiving him?
I do.
Okay.
Well, I think that there's a lot of evidence that she is not, and I think there's a lot of evidence that she is. I think her incessant prying and believing that now that they have slept together once, that she is owed a gratuitous amount of information about his business, to me is a red flag, and she's very, very interested specifically in the Cardinal and Eichhorst, and I think it's more of I think she's a plant to find out if he intends to betray Eichhorst in terms of getting this information from the Cardinal. I do believe that she is a plant from the Master to do that. That is the only reason that I can accept her behavior in this episode, because she acted like a small child that he had taken a toy away from, and he was grounding her and scolding her and explaining why you can't take that away from him. And that was also disgusting to me, because it felt very much like a parent talking to a child. But then additionally, it was just, she seemed to be prying and prying and prying, and he was unrelenting, and he wouldn't give up the information. So I can't accept a reality where she's not a plant, because then she's just a child, and that's more disgusting than anything.
If she's not a plant, this is the worst story told on television in 2015. I'm just going to say it flat out. Because you can't do worse. By definition, there cannot be a worse story than this if she's not a plant. So you've swayed me. I'm because that's what I thought going in, and then the material was so she's so whiny and so like a little girl, and he's so old, and I felt like throwing up, and I just can't. I can't imagine a situation in which the showrunners like storyboarded this out and were like, "This is all okay to subject the audience to." Like, it takes a level of narcissism as a showrunner to be like, we're gonna set you up so hard for this big reveal that we're gonna make you miserable and you're gonna love it. Like that's what this is, right? They couldn't have possibly thought this was okay. So their only thought was like, our show is so amazing that what we're gonna do is make the audience hate it, and then spring this big reveal on them, and they're gonna love it. Like that's such like, I just imagine like the people running the strain is like 1980s Hollywood with like suspenders and power suits and like smoking and like, yeah, you know, they're gonna love it. We're gonna make them hurt and they're gonna love it, because it's just so like, it's so bad. It's so bad to subject your audience to these scenes week after week. Nobody likes them, and it's so obvious that no one would like them. It's such a bad idea.
Well, and if you watch Twitter, as this has been ongoing for the last 6 episodes, if you watch Twitter, nobody's responding well to it.
No, everyone hates it.
Everyone hates it. So you as a creator cannot possibly be out of the conversation so much that you believe that you're going to go steadfast, strong with this idea. And so I don't necessarily think that a creative needs to like shape their art around the people who take in their art. But I do think that shows have sort of smartly, more recently with Twitter and everything like that, like, oh, people don't like that. Why don't I change this a little bit? Why don't I move over a little bit? Like, we've seen a lot of shows do this. They're, like, the show Castle did that kind of brilliantly. Like,
but isn't this show filmed probably 2 months at least in advance? Like, isn't it? I don't feel like they're just filming episodes, or at least current episodes, while that reaction is happening.
It is. So, yes, for the most part, but usually what you get is like a month to 2 months in advance. Generally speaking, when a show ends, they have filmed the last episode about 2 to 3 weeks before that episode airs.
Okay, but I guess at this point, let's say that they started getting that feedback 4 weeks in. I don't know how you pull out of this now. I don't know, because how do you undo this? Because you can't just write it off and bail on it the way they did with Vaughn.
Right.
Like, you can't just stop having this happen, because then it's like, why did it happen? Like, that would be the show's greatest mystery. If Coco was written out of the show next week and no explanation was given.
There wouldn't be a huge mystery. That would be Twitter.
It's Twitter, but I mean, like, they can't do that, right? The other thing is when you embark on a storytelling adventure that is so hated and so horrible, and you commit this much time to it, you have to see it through. Like, you're at this point, you're down a road, and
right.
whatever horrible, not worth it payoff they have planned for this whole stupid story, they're going to have to follow through with it because we've come too far. Like, it's a sunk cost, yes, but their entire thought process was banking on fans retroactively forgiving this terrible material, and so that's what they gotta do. Like, they've gotta just go down with this ship, like that one Dido song. They're gonna go down with this ship.
The Dido song that Eminem then co-opted, that one. Yeah,
no, it's a Dido song. I'm not giving Eminem any credit for that.
I said co-opted.
He's corrupted, maybe. Long lived. I ride for Dido.
Oh, I've learned a lot of new things about you in a very short period of time. No, I know. Like, they just have to go forward with whatever it is, but they would have enough information. I guess all I'm saying, and we can move on after I say this, but is they would have enough information to maybe steer in a slightly different direction.
But the only direction they can go that is even remotely interesting is that is exactly what you have already predicted and what we talked about extensively last week, which is that she's working for the Master.
Yes.
That's the only direction they can go. And I assume that's the direction they're planning to go because you convinced me and because I still have some faith in their competence. So
the other direction they could go is Icarus is going to kill Coco in front of Palmer.
Oh God!
For reasons.
If that's it, I think we should stage some kind of strike. We should still podcast, or we just shouldn't watch the episodes. We should just podcast about what we think happened.
So Fett blew up some buildings.
Yeah, no. We should podcast our fan fiction.
We should. That's what we will do.
The fan fiction episode. Yeah.
Our listeners will be very confused. Yeah. But it'll be great.
They'll be fine with us. We'll lead them in the strike, and then
it'll be better. It'll be
a 1 week strike. 1 week strike. We will not watch the episode and then podcast our fan fiction about the episode. Are we locking that in? Are we locking
a gentleman's agreement?
Okay, we have made an agreement now. Listeners, it is on the record that if the stupid Coco story ends with face value, basically, that she is not a plant by anyone, we are going to podcast a fanfiction episode.
Yep. We'll probably also give you coverage of that.
We'll probably.
But we will tell you our fan fiction of how we think the show should go for the rest of the season.
We'll record our fan fiction, and then we'll watch the episode, and then we'll record our summary of the episode after the fan fiction.
I got it. All right, I agree. Gentleman's agreement.
Oh, this is exciting podcast news. Please, The Strain, do the right thing and save us from that episode.
Yes, save our listeners from our fan fiction.
Now, listeners, your skin is in the game now too. It's not just Blaire and I's discomfort that's at risk now. You might be subjected to our fan fiction. So, brace yourselves.
Yeah, let the Strain know. Do not let that happen.
Do not let that. Reshoot if you have to.
All right. So at the top of the episode, I'm done. I don't want to talk about that disgusting piece of filth anymore. With Palmer and
we only
Coco.
talked about it for like an hour.
I know. I literally I tweeted I think just a series of, ew, no, please don't, stop. Like a bunch of those. That's the only reaction you can have to that.
Let's talk about something positive.
Yes. How about what? Did you have one?
We're going to say the same thing, so you say it.
Icarus and Kelly's makeup session?
Yes! Oh, Icarus, the makeup master. I think I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry. We'll get back to that scene specifically, but you mentioned later in the episode that why is Kelly outside when it's daytime?
Oh, we could do that. Yeah.
We don't need to get to that right now, but I will say that my theory and Laura Lee's theory is that the makeup was magic.
All right. So, in case any of our fans don't know, and they probably don't know, but I'm a huge makeup nerd, and so this scene was delightful for me on many accounts. But what I wanted to say about specifically the Kelly being immune to the sun is that makeup actually does come with a lot of SPF. I have some foundation that comes with SPF 40, so certainly not enough to protect you from UV light that kills worms that are inside your body, but it does happen. You know, maybe Icarus is like some kind of alchemist, and he made like special makeup that lets you walk around in the daylight.
But the checkpoint guy didn't put the UV light on her.
No.
He didn't get that far. I mean, things would have gone badly had he exposed her to the UV light. Like, she was out in the sun wearing a lot of layers of clothes, in a car. And with all this, with this makeup layered on, I guess I can believe that she could be out for a short period of time. At least I'll buy that. You know, that. But the makeup scene itself was incredible.
It was incredible.
It was just like the scene we saw when they opened an episode with Icarus putting on his makeup. It was
same music in the background.
Same music, obvious parallel to that scene, and it was great the first time, great the second time.
Yep. It's proof that you can repeat things and it'll work.
Yeah, well, especially with the little tweak of this being, you know, him putting on a Kelly. I'm a little disappointed that nowhere in Icarus' Nazi backstory did we see that he was an expert makeup artist. I would kind of enjoy that character more if he was like the Nazi makeup artist.
I saw a fan theory on Twitter that obviously Icarus was involved in an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, which I really enjoyed that idea.
Yeah, I feel like if like one of those like trashy channels like TLC figures out what he can do, they're gonna offer him a reality show. Like,
absolutely.
He's my vampire stylist.
Oh my gosh.
It's happening, right?
Oh gosh.
What if the entire apocalypse is delayed because Icarus has to spend 6 weeks filming a reality season?
Well, I mean, it would be time well worth it.
It would be. I mean, you know, if the world's going to end, we might as well have some top quality entertainment to go out with.
Yes. But the wig talk came back for this scene.
Wig talk. We are back. This show cannot escape the wigs. No matter how hard it tries, the wigs are always just a step behind.
Yep, nope. Yep, Icarus put a wig on Kelly, which looked miraculously like the haircut she had right before she died.
Hey, if you like it, put a wig on it. That's what I say.
If you like it, then you should have put a wig on it. Okay, I'm done.
Yes! My unstated goal throughout all of our podcasts has been to get you to sing, and it has now happened, and our podcasts are now over. Goodbye, everyone.
Hi, thank you for listening. I did want to note, through this scene and other scenes, Natalie Brown, who plays Kelly, really has proven that she's a pretty great physical actor.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that, but she's been able to pull something off that I don't know that I think any of the other vampires do, which is just being genuinely creepy in a very human way. Whereas everything else has been very creepy in a very monstrous or like insect type way or something like that.
I mean, I think Icarus surely does that. Like, Icarus is the one, and Kelly now is a vampire like Icarus, who has human traits. But all that said, I agree with you wholeheartely. I think the scene where she was standing outside Zach's window was really good, and just her posture. I really like that actress. She has to be thrilled that she now doesn't have to wear all the crazy vampire makeup.
No,
she's back to normal.
She's back to normal for now. I mean, she did have like her face fall off at the end of that scene. So,
yes, this show is so committed to wigs that they had her in one of those bald caps when she was a vampire, and then they, with the bald cap still on, put a wig on her in this episode. So we got wigs on wigs on wigs going on right here.
It's pretty great. Wigception going on.
Yes.
for the Wig Talk Army. But no, I thought I really enjoyed Natalie Brown's performance, and I'm really excited to see her become more and more of an arch nemesis. Although I will say that based off of everything that I saw in this episode, that I'm never going to get that horrific scene from the books that I want, and I'm really upset about it.
Blaire, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize on behalf of the show that it has failed you. You'll have to move on. What I'm worried about with that character is that her sort of one-woman siege on the compound was fun and all, and started off very scary. But when it became clear that nobody was going to die, it kind of had the air sucked out of it.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to have like you said, an arch villain, a significant character who has existed from the first moments of the pilot and has now been turned bad and is out to get her son. I mean, you have a scene where she, her son, her ex-husband, and her ex-husband's lover are all involved, and she is attacking them, and nobody dies. That's a problem, because if you're going to have a scene like that, there better be some consequence. And that's what I sort of mean by nothing happening in this episode. That's a scene that, if you're going to commit to that scene and involve those principles in a scene, that scene better have a payoff. And one of them has to die. And no one died, and nothing happened, and she ran away, and we're back to square one.
Yeah.
And it's just like the scene in the church, which was a really cool scene where nothing happened. Well, Fitzwilliam died, which I guess made that okay, but it also, like, didn't feel quite good enough, because Fitzwilliam wasn't, like, a main character.
He was a throwaway character.
Yeah, he was a throwaway character, and you obviously can't kill Dutch with this scene, because she's involved in the Nikki plot. So if you're gonna have this scene, I think someone has to die, or else you kind of wasted the scene.
Die or be, like, severely impaired by some form of injury.
Yeah, like if F lost an arm, that'd be fine.
Yeah, right.
But something lasting has to happen. Is what I mean. Like you can't play your cards. You know, you can't have like this scene, like I'm gonna make a tenuous poker metaphor, so get ready. But this scene is like you only have so many like straight flushes you can play, and one of them is this big confrontation scene. And if you play that straight flush, you better be doing more than picking up the antes. Like you better have a big bet on the table. You better have some skin in the game if you're gonna play a big scene like this, or else don't play it. You know, have Zach actually be smart for one time in his life and not open the darn door. You know, like if that door opens, someone's dying.
Can we talk about the roller coaster of Zach? I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, this episode, I think part of the problem that the air got sucked, one of the reasons the air got completely sucked out of that scene is, like, the roller coaster of emotions that we had with Zach in this entire episode.
Because Zach sucked so much, he sucked it all out.
He sucked all the air out.
Yeah.
He couldn't
by being the suckiest character.
I was about to make a Firefly reference. I really shouldn't do that.
Look, you talk about Angel for 40% of this entire podcast, so what's stopping you?
Well, no, I'm not going to.
Okay.
But Zach, like, you know, started off pretty strong. Like, he was smiley and happy, and he was, like, making jokes. He was, like, doing stuff with his dad. He was doing stuff with Nora. It was, like...
He was helping with surgery?
No, well, before that.
Okay,
he was, like, you know, he was just, like, being, like, you know, a likable kid. He was just a kid doing kid things. And it was, like, nice. It's, like, nice. He's a good kid. And then suddenly he's sucked into this situation where he's assisting F with surgery instead of the 30-year-old woman standing next to F.
Oh, so sexist.
I know.
So sexist. That F is like, hey, you better stay back. This is going to get bloody. And then he turns to his 12-year-old son and is like, you ready, bro? It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, that was pretty bad. And then from that moment on, Zach is like got Grimace face again. He's super whiny again, and they start like complaining about Kelly, and because F messes up and starts talking to him about Kelly in the wrong way. So Zach rightfully sort of reacted negatively to that terrible conversation. And then he's the indignant kid who lets a vampire into the house, and he knows that that's a vampire. I'm not convinced in any way, shape, or form that kid thinks that she is okay.
He was making the case for it here, and in fact, Nora was making the case on his behalf in one of the most obvious exposition scenes you'll ever see, where the Strain writers were like, oh crap, we really screwed up Zach. All right, let's have Nora explain his whole thought process. Like, let's have Nora write some bullet points and say who the character of Zach is. And I appreciate the show, like, trying to justify Zach through tenuous exposition. Sorry, show. Does not work. He's too far gone.
I mean, I would like to state that might be proof that the whole Twitter thing works. Just FYI.
Possibly that. Well, it also
everybody reacted terribly to that child.
Yeah, of course. So it might be, yeah, that happened like instantly in like the first episode of the second season. So it's possible that they wrote that Nora scene in after the fact to try to justify Zach as a character. But I mean, it's too late for that. Sorry, guys.
Wait.
You did mention, like, for the first half of this episode, he was more or less okay. He was also
kid. He was a nice kid.
It was a weird watching him like being involved in like a bloody surgery.
Yeah.
Again, for no reason. Like that had no significance at all in anything. That whole sequence, other than to like just set Zach up for more pouting. I felt like I tweeted this. I felt like the early scenes of him and F, when he's like really excited about blood, kind of felt like Dexter flashbacks. Like,
yeah.
I feel like we're setting Zach up to be some kind of monster serial killer.
Yeah.
Like, this is his origin story. Like, he had this terrible father who made him watch, like, surgeries, and he was really excited by the blood. Flash forward 7 years, he's killing people for sport. Like, I feel like that's where Zach is headed.
Oh my god. I'm so happy you just said that, but I can't tell you why.
Oh, good. Did I nail it?
You kind of nailed it.
Yes. My Zach as Dexter theory has paid off already.
Not to give away too many spoilers, but
listen, I'm the one who spoiled it accidentally. I haven't read the books.
It's not like that in any way, shape, or form. But
Sure.
you got the cruel, the being exposed to bad things leads to bad things.
I have drilled down to the core of who Zach is, which is a serial killer.
Kind of. But
listen, if that's wrong, I don't want to be right.
I'm not going to sing for you again, but I almost did.
Trying to bait you into it.
I know. But let's talk about that scene. F and Zach going to the Woos and finding that one of them had been, the elder Woo had been shot through his chest, and then performing surgery despite saying over and over again, "I am not that kind of doctor."
Yeah. I mean, what's there to say, really? Like, this was just like a invented story to get F and Zach together that had no bearing at all on anything.
No, not at all.
Like,
yeah, and they were going for a rifle. That's
great. They couldn't just write it in that like, there was a rifle around the house. Like,
no.
That would have been an easy thing to do. Save us all 20 minutes of our lives.
No, they had to go perform surgery.
Yeah. This is kind of the strain, like one of its worst tendencies, which is like, we've got to tell this story, so let's construct a really paper-thin reason to make it happen. And that's the strain always gets in trouble when it does that. And
although I'm wondering, I don't know if you caught this, but F performed a feat of sleight of hand from Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh boy!
To steal some of the pain medication when he was helping Mr. Wu be in less pain, and he stole some of the pain medicine and tucked it into his pocket, and then took a rifle. And I'm a little curious as to whether or not his goal was to get medicine or his goal was to get a rifle.
Medicine. For what? Because if you're heading towards an F is addicted to pain pills theory, I am in on this.
He took a shot out of his shoulder in the last episode, so he might be like in a lot of pain. He can't go to a pharmacy and get caught on camera or anything like that. So it's entirely possible that he needed to get pain pills, which will then of course lead to more addiction because that's what F does.
Right.
So I don't know if it was the rifle, but I definitely felt like the entire surgery scene was not worth the payoff of a rifle.
No. And I like your reading. I think your reading is much more generous to the show, and so I'll accept it. That the actual goal of the mission was for him to swipe some pain pills, but he didn't want to say that, and so the stated goal was to get a rifle, but he was really just trying to steal some pain pills.
Yeah,
and so
that's the hope.
Yeah, so I think that's a more in-depth and generous reading of the scene. Either way, not worth the screen time it was there for. No, there was nothing stopping them from just writing that there was some Advil around the house.
Well, it could have. I don't know what bottle it was. It could have been an antibiotic.
Maybe.
So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
I like to think that F was addicted to it, though. I like the idea. Yeah. Let's give F some more addictions. Let's pile on some more.
Just make him more of a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know we're skipping around a little bit, but speaking of F being a jerk, he couldn't have laid onto Nora a little bit more kindly that he, had relations with another woman. She died in my arms.
Listen. When you're James Bond, you don't worry about the woman's feelings. Okay.
Oh.
I'm just saying it like it is. Not like I think it should be, ladies, but the way that F is behaving now, he clearly is heading in a certain direction. And that direction does not involve considering your feelings.
No. No, but I think you actually made an interesting point earlier. That this episode actually had some interesting moments of sexism.
Yeah.
I don't know if that fits. I mean, that's certainly misogyny, but I'm not sure that that's overt sexism.
I don't know if the show is endorsing it.
Yeah.
That, it's one thing to have a sexist character, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the show is endorsing sexism. The reason that I read the Zach surgery scene is sexist is that the show clearly did not consider what it was doing. That was an accidental thing by the show.
Right. I don't know, but then doing everything that they could to show Coco Marchand in her underwear pretty much the entire episode.
The open pajama top or whatever that was.
And then the negligee that showed her entire butt.
Yeah.
Her entire butt was seen through that negligee, but not the front for some reason. I don't know how that works physically, but she was it just this entire episode. I was just this is a terrible way to treat women. This entire episode, why are we doing this? Kelly, notwithstanding, because she's a vampire, I guess she doesn't.
Yeah, she's sort of immune from all this.
Yeah, she doesn't have to follow the rules of male and female.
She's no longer a weak-willed woman, as the Strain would categorize her.
Right. But, Nora throwing a fit and, having to accept, what had happened between F and another woman, and Coco Marchand being in the most uncomfortable clothing situation ever, and
sleeping with a 95-year-old.
And sleeping with a 95-year-old of her own volition, hopefully not. And then the Ms. Wu, I don't think I got her first name.
Yeah.
Not being able to help with the surgery because she's a woman. It just was such a. It was difficult.
Yeah, and that's not even to say Dutch being off on her own because she needs to take care of her girlfriend that clearly has an alternate agenda, and Dutch is blind to it because she's blinded by her womanly passions.
Right.
Yeah, this is a show that has trouble with women.
Get your face out of the skirt. What did he say? Get your head out of a skirt.
Yeah. Oh.
He said that
in a great pep talk to Fett, but yeah, it wasn't great.
And the gal stands by while Gus makes out with again, Ms. Gupta. I know their last name. I don't know their first name.
Yeah.
And then, she stands by sort of limply.
Damsel in distress.
Totally damsel in distress, while Gus has a conversation
looking out her tower window in horror as her Prince Charming is almost decapitated by a vampire.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Bystander.
Not a good episode for women.
Women were bystanders in this episode.
Yeah.
Through and through. And that's troublesome. It's just not great. I mean, I get it. We both think that Coco has something else up her sleeve, but even then she's clearly a pawn of some bigger scheme, likely by the master. So
she's not making her own rules.
Right. She's not on this for herself, I don't think. I mean, if she is, then we can deal with that as it comes, but yeah, I'm getting depressed from this conversation.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, it isn't great, and there were a lot of problems. I just to inject some positivity here, I really liked the scene where Gus and Angel were talking in Spanish in the car.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
That was awesome. That was a little bit of weird, authentic stuff from the Strain, in a show that often creates a very inauthentic world that felt very authentic.
Yeah, especially the conversation topic wasn't overtly talking about existentialism or all that much, but it was it was sort of a nice, authentic conversation about if God is real, why is he letting this happen to us? And that's not something that we've really heard in this show yet. And I think that's nice, because I think that real people in the world think about the world that way. I certainly don't. But I believe those characters, I would believe a slew of other characters in the show having that conversation.
Well, and we also had a cardinal in this episode. I'm worried because the Strain is definitely not equipped to tackle religion, but I feel like we're heading down that road with the cardinal and with that conversation. We're gonna get into some issues here with the Strain. We're gonna have a very special religious special on the Strain.
We have now killed on camera multiple children and a religious figure. So
true.
The Strain is just going for it.
Yeah, killing people willy-nilly.
Killing people you don't traditionally see killed.
No, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Although this cardinal was a shady fellow, as he is categorized on the show. They did everything they could to make him the shadiest cardinal around.
They really did.
So, yeah.
But no, like Gus and Angel, I really like that.
Yeah, good scene.
It's one of those things where it's like I never anticipate that subtitles are coming, and then I'm like, oh man, I have to pay attention on a totally different level right now.
Yeah.
But it was nice, yeah. Like they kind of had a pretty much an everyday conversation that also was injected with like the information of the specific situation that they were in. And I like Angel as a character, and I like them. I like the way that they're kind of presenting him as a little bit of a know-it-all who keeps having bad things happen around him.
Yeah. I could use 100% more Angel in my life right now. I like that character a lot. I like his dynamic with Gus. I like his whole point of view. I want to know more about him. I think that they might be going a little bit light on Angel right now.
Yeah, they're definitely going light on Angel as compared to where he goes in the books. But I think one of the things that we've read in a couple of different sources was that season 2 and 3 are sort of going to be an amalgamation of book 2 and book 3. And then after season 3, they have up to 5 seasons to tell the rest of the story. So it's possible that all the stuff that they're doing with Angel that is mostly prominent in book 2 could bleed over into season 3, just based on how much time we have left. We have 4 episodes left of the season. Like, there's not a lot of time to let him kind of tell the rest of his story arc unless he's just going to be a B character the whole time.
Yes, I agree. I think we're going to get more of him as the show progresses.
Yeah, and hopefully keep him going into season 3.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, okay. We are just going all around. I want to go back to the Kelly thing really quickly with the fight. I should have mentioned this before because you said like the air was taken out of that scene entirely. But one of my favorite things that happened there, because we were just talking about a cardinal and children dying, is one of the feelers being impaled directly in front of F, and it was one of the most human moments I think I've seen from F this entire season. When he reacted to seeing a child impaled in front of him.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of liking these human moments that are coming in this episode. That one being included, the Gus and Angel one being included. I just think, and even I think Nora being Miss Exposition, that she had a very human moment in that scene. Mia Maestro did a really good job portraying her angst and her anger in that scene. So I thought like there were a lot of good acting moments in this episode.
Yeah, I think the acting on the show has been quite good for this stretch here, and I think there were. Yeah, the show is doing a better job at having cool moments. Going back a few episodes to the Luchador intro that we both really liked.
So good.
Yeah, so good, and that the scenes we talked about here, the Spanish scene in the car, and the scene where Kelly is outside the window. I mean, they're definitely hitting on some moments, and it's just some of the storytelling choices they're making. Palmer specifically, and Zach. Palmer, it really. I mean, think of how good the season would be if Palmer and Zach just weren't things. Like, let's rewrite this is getting into the fan fiction territory, so we'll have to pull out of this quick. But let's rewrite it that Zach was killed at the end of season 1, and Kelly is now out to get F because she's out for revenge because she blames him for getting her son killed. Mm-hmm. And Zach just wasn't a character on the show at this point, but everything else was playing out more or less as it is. Like, and that Coco didn't exist. And Palmer was just Palmer. Like, wouldn't that fix, like, 60% of the problems with the show?
Yeah.
Like, aren't we, like, each week harping on kind of the same things? And those stories aren't getting any better? And that's the issue here is we've got, of the, like, 5 or 6 plates the show is spinning, 2 of them have broken in half and are lying on the floor.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And I do feel bad for our listeners that we just keep complaining about the same thing over and over again. But like it sucks so much energy and so much believability out of the entire situation. Yeah. I mean, let's not forget how unrealistic the apocalypse continues to be portrayed.
Sure.
Based obviously on our conversation last week with our pandemic specialist. But it's just like things are just not really happening that should be happening. But if you take that part of it away, the hardest part is these characters that keep doing things like just not functioning well in the story, not progressing the story. They're a hindrance to our characters getting anything done, and it's anxiety creating as opposed to excitement creating. And it just makes you sad.
It does, yeah. Speaking of our of Paul Clark, our guest from the previous episode, which if you haven't listened to, totally listen to that episode. At the end, we've got a great long interview with him about all things the strain and how they relate to the real world, medically speaking. Really great.
Pandemically speaking.
He sent us an email shortly after this episode aired with his thoughts on the episode. Always appreciated, and. He really liked the episode, which I can totally see. By the way, there was enough in this episode that was good to really like the episode. He pointed out a lot of the stuff we did, specifically the Gus Angel scene. He really liked, from his perspective, the mention that no hospitals are up and running, the mention of the quarantine, the travel checkpoints. Like, we are getting into more of the hallmarks of what you would see from an apocalypse. What's missing still, of course, is the widespread panic.
Which is incredible.
Yes, it's really amazing that no one is panicking, or that like the masses aren't panicking, I should say.
Still time to order Indian food.
Still time to order Indian food. For his low lights, he mentioned that all the Palmer Coco stuff, which goes without saying, even though we talked about it for 20 minutes. And he specifically mentioned that the surgery scene with Mr. Wu, surprise, surprise, was completely bonkers and not resembling reality in any world. If he wasn't pumped up with painkillers before that surgery, he is not going to be conscious to rate his pain as a 15 out of 10. Before having major surgery on his stomach. So,
yeah. Just
some notes. Thank you, Paul, as always, for emailing.
We're happy to share the information of whether things are medically accurate via Paul.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's a reminder to everybody that you can send us emails at thestrainpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll happily read them on air. Again, that is thestrainpodcast@gmail.com. But we have a very special guest to talk about the Strain Bingo with.
Yes, our Strain Bingo finally, about 2/3 of the way through the season, has a winner. And many people got bingo this week, but we have brought on as a guest the winner, and we're going to transition to that interview here now and say goodbye to you, listeners.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, everyone. So for Season 2, we've been playing a little game called the Strain Bingo, which was created by notable The Strain Army member Laura Lee and myself, where we listed some things that tend to happen in every episode of The Strain and put them on a bingo card, and our loyal listeners mark them off as they watch the episode. And until now, there has not been an actual bingo, but that all changed tonight. I would like to shout out to our runners-up, all of whom claimed bingo tonight correctly, at Blas de Tejas, at Super Nyancat, at VL Benning, and at Norma Jones 1963. Congratulations to all of you, but there can only be one winner, just as there can only be one master. And for this week, that winner is our dear Twitter friend, at Batmary, who is joining us now. Batmary, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast, Batmary. So tell us, what bingo squares did you get?
I got them straight down the middle. Coco was suspicious of Palmer. Coco and Palmer flirt in a disgusting scene. There is a free square. Nora's face looks like a puppy dog. I sort of abbreviate these. Sure. And a stinger misses a character.
So that is a bingo officially this week. At least someone benefited from all the Coco Palmer material. At least someone had a good time with that. And I believe the square we were all waiting on, because most of those, I think the first 4 of those happened in like the first 5 minutes of this episode. We were all waiting for the stinger to magically miss.
Yes.
And then it finally happened.
Which happened literally in the last 3 or 4 minutes of the epised.
The last 3 or 4 minutes. It was the battle with Kelly and the Feelers, right? And was that it?
Yeah, and it was the stinger missed Nora.
That's right. The stinger magically missed Nora. And within 2 seconds of that happening, Mary was declaring bingo on Twitter.
All right, I have to admit, I had it pre-punched into my phone. I had it ready to go, and I saved it as a draft.
You know
I
what?
was like, I just know it's going to happen.
This is the kind of commitment we expect from Strain Bingo players. You know, all of you guys, all of you runner-ups, great job, but you're hearing it from the champ right now. This is the kind of prep you have to undergo if you want to win Strain Bingo and make a glorious appearance on the Strain podcast.
I have a quick question for Mary. Because everybody seems to do it differently with our fans. Some people have printed out the bingo sheet and are actually Xing it off. Some people who draw a grid and X it off. Some people do it on their phones or like do it on Photoshop. I saw somebody do it on Photoshop, which is fascinating. How do you keep track of the bingo, just so I know?
I have Post-it notes, and so I rewrite the bingo square on a Post-it note every week, and I just X them off as we go.
Wow, that's
amazing. Again, runners up. Listen to what the master is saying.
It's faster. Photoshop is cool, but that takes time.
That's right.
I don't got time for that.
No one who photoshops their bingo and draws a line through it is gonna win bingo ever. Because I feel like everyone who's playing is kind of locked in, and so it's just really a speed game, and you've really mastered that to a science. So since we have you here, we probably shouldn't just talk about our dumb little bingo game. What is your history with The Strain as a TV show? I assume you've been watching since the first episode and are a super fan.
No. Like, everyone I know has been trying to get me to watch The Strain since the first episode. Like, people I work with, my friends, people I go to church with, like, everyone is just like, you need to watch The Strain. You would really like it. It's a gross apocalyptic vampire show that's kind of like zombies. And I'm like, well, that sounds dumb and confusing, and I don't want to watch that. And it's on FX, which is a channel I don't normally watch, so I never really thought about it. And then I follow y'all from the 12 Monkeys podcast.
Yes.
And so I noticed y'all were watching The Strain. And I was like, well, I really miss hearing their voice, so let's give this show a try.
Aww.
So I did, and it was so much fun.
That's one of the sweetest things anybody's ever said.
I feel for the first time like our podcast has succeeded.
Yeah, I think it really helps having this like Twitter community while you're watching a show. Because first off, I have no idea who any of these characters are, and I need help, like, figuring out who the master is.
Yes. Yeah, you had a very near bingo a few weeks back that was only derailed by your lack of knowledge about who the master was.
So close.
So close.
So what did you think, Mary, of this episode called Intruders?
It was very exciting, but I don't know if it was exciting because exciting things happened or because the Whig army came back and there was like multiple near bingos, and it was just, I was on my toes the whole time.
Yeah. It was an exciting episode, certainly, for the stupid tropes of our podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was an exciting episode as far as its own merits go.
Oh, certainly some tantalizing and interesting things happened that I'm sure we will talk about more.
I mean, if there's one word that I'd use to describe the Palmer-Coco relationship, it's tantalizing.
Oh, no.
Mary, do you have a favorite character on The Strain?
Oh, goodness. Who is my favorite character? It would have to be Fett.
Yeah.
Good choice.
That's the correct choice. That's the right choice.
Yeah. So did you forgive him for his whining last week about his lost love? Like, were you just Team Fett all the way?
Well, everyone has their moments. He's been hanging out with Zach too much, locked up in the house.
Great point. Great point. We can now blame Zach. Anytime a character kind of goes off the rails for a bit, we can just blame Zach.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that, I think, covers it all. Batmary, again, you are at Batmary on Twitter, and you have a podcast called My Haunted Podcast that everyone should listen to because you listen to our podcast.
Yep. On SoundCloud.
Yep, I was just going to say, everybody can go and find that on SoundCloud, and it is also linked on your Twitter profile, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I think I did that.
Yeah, good. Promotion.
Yeah. I forget technology sometimes.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to say about The Strain before we go?
I do have a question.
Oh.
Did you guys watch The Walking Dead? Like early seasons, maybe, perhaps?
I watched season 1 of The Walking Dead, and I thought the final episode of season 1 was very bad television, so I stopped watching The Walking Dead.
I have watched every season of The Walking Dead. Ask your
Okay.
question. I am the master.
All right. Well, much like The Strain, I missed the first season of The Walking Dead as well.
Mhm.
But who is worse, Carl in his early seasons or Zach?
Oh my gosh. This might require like a tail of the tape boxing matchup. Because I feel like, wow, in terms of whininess, it's really a draw. I mean,
Yeah.
now Carl, did he get the cowboy hat when he was a whiny kid in the early season, or was that the point at which he stopped being so whiny and the show rewrote him entirely?
Oh man, I think once he got the cowboy hat, he kind of grew up a little bit.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of memes about like Carl or things like that when he's like
Yeah.
wearing the cowboy hat.
But that's
And a lot of-
that's more Rick.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
Rick loves to go Coral. Coral. And it's not really like it's just out of despair, like general despair, like most things on The Walking Dead are. I think that the deciding point, and why I'm going to say that Zach is worse, is that Zach is moving in the wrong direction. That Zach in the first season of The Strain wasn't an especially bad character, and he has just fallen off a cliff in the second season with the recasting.
No.
Carl started off really terrible, and progressively got better until they figured out, like, hey, why don't we just throw out every single one of his personality traits and start over? and they did, and then he became like a completely fine character and is now basically like a little version of Daryl. Like, he just goes around shooting things. So
Yeah.
I feel like we're headed in the wrong way with Zach.
I would love to share a very short anecdote with you guys about The Walking Dead.
Please.
About memes, as you've heard me say. I'm well aware of The Walking Dead memes and the way that people make fun of it. There's a thing in Chicago where I podcast from called Trapped in a Room with a Zombie, where you have an hour to not get bitten by a zombie that's trapped in a room with you, and it's very scary. And the team that I went in with all were Walking Dead fans, and everybody had named themselves some kind of iteration of Carl, and they assigned me the name Coral. So I had very little context for that, but I hope that you guys enjoyed that anecdote.
I enjoyed that. I want to give a quick plug to someone whose names I don't remember off the top of my head, but Blaire, they're the two ladies who make all the cool stuff for our binges.
Oh, Citizen Nerd Etsy.
Citizen Nerd Etsy have an amazing print of a piece of coral with a cowboy hat on it, and it says Coral, and it says The Walking Dead. It's amazing, and everyone should buy it.
I agree.
So we just did 10 minutes on coral.
Yes.
Yeah. Just, you know.
Well, thank you so much, Mary, for coming on the podcast with us and
Yeah,
for
thanks for
participating in the bingo.
For sure.
We are so glad that we have led you to The Strain.
Oh yeah.
Are you going to rewatch the first season, or are you just going to go from here?
Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch the first season.
Yes.
I need to find out. I need more wig in my life.
Oh, so much wig. So much wig in the first season.
Yeah, I like, and a lot of like those obvious wigs as well, not just the F version of wigs, like the actual like Bolivar with his wig and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that type of material, so you should enjoy it.
This show will put like a bald like hat on people and then put a wig over the bald hat. Like, that's how much this show loves wigs.
Oh goodness.
Well, Mary, thank you again so much for coming on. We hope that you'll continue to play bingo with us. Every time you win, we're gonna figure out a way to at least shout you out, if not invite you on. But
All right, cool.
we'll definitely be talking with you on Twitter about this show and other shows. So thanks for coming on.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks.